And Debbie, am I all set to just go and we're live? Awesome. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jillian Morris, and I'm really excited to talk to everyone today all about sharks. So I'm actually calling you from the South Island of Bimini in the Bahamas. It's about 50 miles from Florida, so it's actually the closest Bahamian island to the United States. And the reason I live here is because there's lots of sharks. I'm really lucky. We get to spend time with these animals almost every day. The Bahamas is home to some incredible shark research at the Bimini Biological Field Station, the Island School, and research being done by other organizations throughout the country. It's also considered the shark diving capital of the world, so people travel from all over to see different species of sharks. Right now in Bimini, the great hammerheads are here, so people from all over the world are traveling to this little island just to see these amazing animals. And it's also a shark sanctuary. So in the Bahamas, it is illegal to target, fish for, or distribute or sell any sharks or shark products. So they're actually protected here. So if you want to spend a lot of time with sharks, whether you're studying them, photographing, filming them, or just swimming and diving with them, this is a great place to be, and it's exactly why I'm here. I am a marine biologist. I'm also the founder of Sharks for Kids, which hopefully you guys will all go check out the website after. We have lots of curriculum, activities, videos, different quizzes and games, drawings, things like that that you can get involved with if you want to dive a little deeper into the world of sharks. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start sharing some images with you. And you guys, the website is sharksforkids.com, so feel free to check that out after and contact us if you have any additional questions. Right, so I do spend a lot of time with ocean animals. I've traveled all over the world working as a marine biologist, and now spend a lot of time filming and photographing sharks in different marine life. I work for different television channels like National Geographic, BBC, Animal Planet, and now the sun has gone behind a cloud, so it won't be quite as intense. Let me just make sure you guys can see this okay. Turn the brightness up a little bit. So I spend a lot of time in the water, and these photos just kind of show you a little bit of what that work looks like. So sometimes, oops, someone having difficulty with the audio. Is anyone else having difficulty with the audio? Okay, great. So I'm going to keep going. So let me see if I can move a little bit closer if that helps. So I do spend, like I said, a lot of time working with animals. Sometimes it's taking photos and videos. Sometimes it's going out and catching and tagging sharks. Other times it's teaching students, providing hands-on opportunities through our Sharks for Kids program in collaboration with the Bimini Biological Field Station or Sea Camp. We have different programs we run. And I'll talk a little bit more about each of these as we go, but this is really just to kind of introduce you into a little bit of what my world with sharks looks like. So for a lot of people, this is what they think of when they think of sharks. Right? You've seen movies, or you hear things on the news, or you see it on the internet, man-eating monsters, they're scary. People all over the world have an incredible fear of these animals, right? But this is not the reality. Okay? Sharks are not man-eating monsters, right? Yes, they have teeth. Yes, they can be very large. Yes, they're top predators. But that's not a reason to fear them. It's a reason to respect them, but it's not a reason to fear them. And the reality that we see sometimes isn't actually the truth about these animals. So hopefully, if any of you are afraid of sharks, or you're like, oh my goodness, I saw these movies, by the end of our talk, maybe you'll think they're amazing, or you'll be curious to learn a bit more, or even want to help these sharks because they're actually in a lot of trouble. We're going to talk about that at the end. So the reality is sharks are pretty awesome animals. They do some amazing things. They're found in every single ocean around the world. And yes, they have teeth, but the teeth are pretty important for not only eating their food, but also catching it, right? Sharks don't have McDonald's. There's no fast food restaurants or cafeterias, right? They have to find and catch all their own food. So instead of thinking of those teeth as scary, let's all just think of them as actually really, really important for these animals. You know, basking sharks and whale sharks, they swim along like big underwater vacuum cleaners, and they suck in the plankton, their food, or small fish, right? But for most sharks, it actually does involve catching their food and using those teeth. right? And sharks can be very large. Right? A whale shark can be longer than a school bus, but not every shark is big. Right? Dwarf lantern sharks are only about 6 to 8 inches long. That's as big as they get. And no matter how big a shark gets, it's really important to remember they do start out small. Oops, hang on, there we go. So this is a baby nurse shark. Oh, I'm going to answer this question. So how much fish do sharks eat? It really depends on the type of sharks. If you see here this baby nurse shark, it's about 11 inches long, 28 centimeters. It's a newborn baby. It's not eating huge fish, right? So it's going to eat small crabs, little lobsters, small conch. Other sharks, like a great white, say it eats a seal or a sea lion or a big chunk of it, it might not eat again for an entire month. So it really just depends on the type of shark, the food they eat, how frequently they actually eat. Now, this baby shark, that's very, very small, nurse sharks are one of the most common species we have here in the Bahamas. It's on its own. Mom and dad sharks do not actually take care of the babies at all, no matter how they're born. We'll talk about that in just a minute. So this little shark is not a top predator. Right, and it's got camouflage, it's got those little spots to help it kind of hide out. Now, it may end up much higher on the food chain, right? And some sharks are apex predators. They're in the top of the food chain. But not every shark is on the top, and to get there, it's quite a long journey. They face a lot of challenges. So we oftentimes think of them as great ocean predators, but that's not always the case. Okay, so it's really important to remember they start out small, they can be very vulnerable, and at this stage, large grouper, barracuda, even other sharks will happily make a meal out of this little animal. Now, sharks are fish, but they're quite a bit different than some of the other fish you might be familiar with. And the first thing is fish have bones, just like we do. But sharks, they don't actually have any bones. If you all touch the end of your nose or the top of your ear, we have cartilage, that really flexible stuff. This is what a shark's skeleton is made of. And if you look at the left, I think it'll be on your left image, that's what the inside of a shark fin looks like. That's the cartilage. Someone typed in a question earlier, why can lemon sharks bite their own tails? They're very flexible, and part of that reason is this cartilage. Just like the top of your ear is really bendy, all right? Your arm isn't going to bend like that. Bone doesn't bend, okay, like that. So to think about that flexibility and movement, right? So this is a big advantage for sharks to be able to maneuver around as they're going to get their prey. If we look at the outside of a fish, you see the scales here. You see those big shiny silver scales. It's on a tarpon. But on the left, you see the shark skin. You don't actually see them, right? And even though it looks smooth, shark skin is really rough. It feels a lot like sandpaper, or if you have a cat at home, its tongue is pretty rough. And the reason it feels like that is because sharks have teeth in their mouth, but they actually also have teeth that make up their skin. So these dermal denticles, which literally translate to skin teeth, right, come together and create this very tough outer coating. So you can see the nurse shark skin in different levels of closeness, and a high-powered microscope is able to show us the dermal denticles, so those little points, and that's why you feel the rough edges like teeth or like the sandpaper. But this is an advantage because it actually allows water to move over the skin easily, making it easier for the shark to swim. So much so that Olympic swimsuits and even new car designs have used this for efficiency in the water. And if you're a shark and you're swimming around, you want it to be as easy as possible. You want it to be efficient. And if you look at this image, this is a tiger shark. And again, you can see from a distance a bit closer, and then using a high-powered microscope to look closer at the dermal denticles. Every type of shark has a different size and shape dermal denticle. So you can actually identify them just by seeing these little skin teeth. And one of the other really cool differences is fish spawn. They lay thousands of eggs. Sharks don't actually do this. Now, some species of sharks lay egg cases, right? But they don't lay thousands. This poor Jackson shark, she only lays one. Right? She lays one single egg case. She'll pick it up in her mouth. So the shark you see here, the case below it, and she'll put it in her mouth, and she'll put it under some rocks, and she'll leave it. She's done. She doesn't sit on the nest like a chicken sits on the eggs. She is done. Right? And it takes up to 11 months for that little shark to be able to hatch out. But if you look at the top image, you can see the little shark inside there. There's a yolk sac, so there's food. They can move around to get the water to actually flow through so they're able to breathe. And it's on its own. This hard protective case hopefully protects them from other predators. And when the time is they're ready, they'll hatch out. But again, they're on their own. Right? The important thing to remember is these baby sharks do not have their parents around at all. They're completely on their own. But it's okay because they can swim, they can breathe, they have all the same sensory systems. Unlike human babies, when we're little, we need a lot of help. We can't really do much on our own. These sharks are completely capable of actually taking care of themselves. Now, even though sharks are not mammals, some types of sharks, like lemon sharks, actually give birth to live young. So this little lemon shark was born alive. It had an umbilical cord, just like we all did. So the little dot you see next to the arrow is actually a shark belly button. All right, and someone just wrote in, is it called a mermaid's purse? Yes. Oftentimes, the little cases that the shark you saw in is, the nickname is a mermaid's purse. And if you guys go to the beach, you can find these washed up on shore, because once the shark hatches out or skates, they'll actually wash up on shore. And you can find these. It's kind of like a cool little treasure. Right? So this little lemon shark has a belly button. It's not a true belly button because they don't have it their whole life. It's an umbilical scar, but you can see it there, and it does show live birth. Now, if you go on the Sharks for Kids website into our media gallery, you can actually see a video showing the live birth happening of these little lemon sharks. And they swim around, they break off the umbilical cord, and then they're on their own. They're immediately a little shark. And here in Bimini, the big pregnant female lemon sharks come back in the spring on the very high tides on a full moon and give birth close to the mangroves so that the little babies can go into the mangroves, which is a safe place for them to find food and shelter because they're very small, they're very vulnerable, and it gives them an opportunity to be in a safe place to grow until they can go into deeper water. This lemon shark is alive. It's flipped over in a sleep-like state we call tonic immobility. Right? And if you've ever watched a show on TV where you see divers in suits and they kind of flip the sharks around, it's the very same thing. And it doesn't harm the animal. This is done for where we're able to study it. We can put tags in. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But the shark will flip over and it'll swim on its way. Right? We don't keep it in this position for a very long time, but it does help us to do different things and actually learn and study the shark. All right, so there are over 500 different species of sharks, over 500. I think we're at about 512 right now. And just last year, at the end of the year, there was a new species called the ninja lantern shark that was discovered. So every year, new species are being discovered, which is an important reason why we want to take good care of our oceans. There's still so much we don't know about the largest part of our planet. Part of that is these new species. Right, sharks can do some weird and wonderful, amazing things. Most people know great whites or the great hammerheads. But on here, if you look at the shark on the top with the big glow-in-the-dark eye, that's a velvet belly lantern shark. They're a very small, deep water shark, and they actually have a glow-in-the-dark belly. All right, so like a built-in night light, which is really awesome because it's very dark in the deep part of the ocean. So this light can actually attract food to come in and help them. Now on the other side, the great whites in the middle, the one with the orange stripes, is a shy shark. They're called that because when they get scared, they curl up in a little shark donut and they put their tail fin over their eyes, right? And they curl up, right? Again, another small species of shark. The one in the very middle with all the tassels, that's an ornate wobbegong. On the other side with the spots is a zebra shark. The other side of that is an adult nurse shark. Below that is an oceanic whitetip. On the very bottom right is a Greenland shark. These sharks live in very deep cold water around Greenland, the Arctic, and they can live over 100 years. Right? So sharks do some really amazing, weird, and wonderful things. They're incredibly diverse with over 500 different species. They live in different habitats within the ocean as well. Every single ocean has sharks. Right? And some live over seagrass beds, or some out in the open ocean. They're pelagic. They're not anywhere near the bottom or anywhere near land. The top image with the little lemon shark in the mangroves. So these mangrove bushes have their roots right down in the water, and it provides a kind of like a nursery school for sharks. But instead of science or math, they're learning how to be a shark. They're learning how to find food, hide from predators. It's a safe place for them to grow up. Other sharks live on coral reefs, and in different stages of their life, they'll move through different habitats. Right? Incredibly diverse animals living in diverse habitats and ecosystems within the ocean. Right? So Sharks do have some amazing adaptations. They've been around for a very long time. They're very good at being top predators. Now, they do have all the same 5 senses we do, but they have a couple of extra senses that really help them find their food and survive in their ocean habitat. So this extra sense, which is sometimes referred to as their sixth sense, is found in all these little dots. It almost looks like the shark has freckles. And those little dots are filled with a gel-like substance that detects electrical pulses. These ampullae of Lorenzini detect that. And what that means is every one of us right now, we're giving off an electrical pulse. It comes from our heartbeat or if we move. So if this tiger shark is swimming around and there's a stingray and it's buried in the sand, it's camouflaged. The shark can't see it or smell it, but it actually has the ability to feel it once it gets close enough because it can detect the movement of the heart, right, using these little cells. So it's another tool in the shark's toolbox to help it be able to find food. Because remember, no McDonald's, no cafeteria, nobody's making them a snack, right? Yes, they do scavenge on dead things, but they're not always so lucky. They do have to actively seek out their food. Another part of this sensory system is the lateral line. So if you look on the bottom image, it almost looks like little bug bites along the side of the nurse shark. These detect movement, right? So if a fish is swimming, its tail is creating movement, the shark can actually feel that, right? So all of these sensory systems are incredibly strong, right? They're highly developed because this is how these sharks are able to navigate, find food, and survive. Right? So very, very important. Again, they've been around for a really long time. Right? They're very good at being sharks. Right? And sharks breathe underwater their entire life. Right? They never have to go to the surface to get air. And they'll have 5, 6, or 7 of these openings on the side, these gill slits. Right? And the water comes in through the shark's mouth, moves along the gills. They extract the oxygen just like we get oxygen from the air. Now, you may have heard before, one of the oldest species of sharks, I just got a question, is Helicoprion, which you can still find fossilized. It's kind of this whorled teeth, and it would actually stick out from the mouth very differently. A really, really cool, kind of almost like it had a saw and extended out instead of inside the mouth. Right? And also, you guys have probably heard of Megalodon, a prehistoric species. It is no longer swimming around the oceans of the world. It's been extinct for about 3 million years. And we know about these extinct species and these prehistoric species because of the teeth, right? The cartilage breaks down, but the teeth remain. And we find their teeth. And so scientists have been able to kind of piece together their shape, their size, and learn about these animals that are around before the dinosaurs. Right? Now, these gill slits, the water comes in the mouth. Something like a great white or a great hammerhead, they have to spend their entire life swimming. They cannot stop. They have to get the water to come in through their mouth in order to get oxygen and breathe. But not every shark has to do that. So not every shark has to swim to stay alive. Some sharks and rays, kind of the flat shark or the cousin to the shark, have spiracles, this opening behind the eye. So this ornate wobbegong can sit right on the bottom, right, and it can actually move water in through that spiracle. Now other sharks will buccal pump. So you can see here the lemon shark and the nurse shark, they're able to rest right on the bottom. They have very strong jaw muscles to actually suck the water in and move it along the gills. So they do not have to swim to stay alive. Right, so important thing to remember, not every species has to do that. All right. When did you get interested in sharks, and have you ever been injured working with them? Right? I have loved sharks most of my life. I saw my first shark when I was 8 years old, snorkeling in Florida. It was a nurse shark, so I've always really loved them. They'll still have a special place. And I was fascinated. I grew up in Maine, so I spent a lot of time in tide pools and kind of exploring. And so I just kind of always loved ocean animals, whether it was lobster or snails. But sharks really fascinated me. And as I got older, and got to spend more time with them, it wasn't Jaws. They weren't coming at me, they weren't trying to attack me, and I just thought they were really amazing animals, and I realized that a lot of people don't like them, and so I just kind of felt this draw to share my experiences with them. I was seeing them, they were amazing, I was photographing them, I was studying them, and I really wanted to share that with people because they are not man-eating monsters. They're really, really fascinating and incredibly important creatures. They're kind of like an underdog. Maybe they're not as cute and cuddly as some other animals that get a lot of attention, but they need the attention and they're really important. Sorry, the sun, I'm trying to read this. I've never been injured. I've never been bitten by a shark. I've never been attacked. Sometimes when we're working with them from the rough skin, we get what's called shark burn. It's kind of like a floor burn because all those little skin teeth, if you're handling the shark during a workup, so sometimes you actually will get that on the skin. But I've never been bitten, and I've never had one try to attack me. And I've spent thousands of hours working with sharks and in the water with them, and I've never been bitten. So I'll answer this one and then we'll keep going. So do they still use electrically charged shark suits to repel sharks? Well, magnets are kind of the thing that's been used right now. We actually just did some testing because their sensory systems will also pick up the magnetic fields. Over the years, they've studied varying types of magnets to use as a repellent for sharks, whether it's worn on a bracelet or like a fake kind of wall of kelp with magnets in it to test, and it does repel certain species. Bull sharks have a pretty strong reaction. Hammerhead, something like the nurse sharks don't seem to have as strong of a reaction. They also use chemicals, have been tested as far as like a synthetic dead shark, because certain species of shark, if there's a dead one, they leave, they're gone. So scientists have looked at creating a synthetic or kind of a fake version of that as another possibility for repelling sharks. So there's been lots of different kind of work to kind of determine what could be used. So they're actually kind of probably the most significant ones with the best reactions have been chemical and magnetic. Right? So I'm going to keep going for a little bit and then I'll jump into a couple more of the questions. All right, and the teeth. So really important for the animal. And you can see here they have different sized and shaped teeth. And the top one on the left is a nurse shark. They have very tiny little teeth because they actually suck their food in and then crush it. Like they'll crush a lobster or a conch, which is like a giant snail. They can suck it out of its shell. The other one on the top is a cookie cutter shark. You guys may have heard of them. They're not a big shark, but they swim up to big whales, dolphins, or other sharks, and they take a chunk. It looks like someone took a cookie cutter and took it out, a plug of flesh, right? Hence the name that they got. So different sharks have different size and shaped teeth depending on what they eat and how they eat, right? Whale sharks have teeth, but they don't really use them because they're actually just sucking their food in like a giant underwater vacuum cleaner. And sharks' teeth are very loose. So instead of ours, when we lose our baby teeth and we get our adult teeth and that's it, we have to take really good care of them, right? Sharks, as long as they're alive, they're making new teeth. Right, so if you see in that bottom image, you can kind of see all the rows. When one falls out, another one will move forward and replace it. And another one, which means adult sharks, something like a lemon shark that might live anywhere from 20 to 40 years, could have up to 30,000 teeth in its lifetime. 30,000 teeth. Right, so great, that was just a question. All right, different sharks have different amounts in their mouth at a time. Right, depending on how many rows, and there are always new ones moving forward. But over their lifetime, tens of thousands of teeth. Again, really important for these animals. Now, when sharks eat, a lot of times, their food doesn't want to actually become lunch. Or we're pretty lucky. Food just sits there. It doesn't really fight back, right? But imagine today if you guys were trying to eat your sandwich and you had your arms tied behind your back and your sandwich just jumping all over the table and it's hitting you in the face. Wouldn't be very easy. You'd look really silly trying to eat it. It's kind of like what happens with sharks, right? And they don't have safety goggles, but they want to protect their eyes because their vision is actually really important. So they have, some of them, a nictitating membrane. It's like an eyelid, and it can move up or down over the eye to protect it. So something like a great white, they actually will roll their eyes back, right? Because if they're trying to eat a seal or a sea lion, it might bite or claws. And it's really, really important to be able to protect their eyes. If you see in this next image, you'll see a tiger shark, right? And it's kind of come out. It looks like the shark is winking, but it's that white nictitating membrane has come up over the shark's eye in order to protect it. Right, now, lemon sharks, right, that we have a lot of here in Bimini, when they're young in those mangrove forests, they have their best friends, right? And a lot of sharks are actually quite social. These sharks have their best buddies that they like to hang out with, but they're not playing video games or basketball. They're finding food, they're hiding from predators, and they'll do different activities with different sharks. Right? So sharks are not mindless eating machines. Right? They have their favorite foods. Right? They're extremely intelligent. You're able to train them to push buttons or open boxes to get treats. A study done in the UK showed that they actually have an incredible memory. Right? So they don't have these tiny brains and just swimming around, just eating all the time, anything and everything. They're actually extremely intelligent, and some of them are very social animals. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit now about my work with sharks. I've traveled all over the world to photograph them, to study them, and just to work with different species. It's been amazing, and some of the first things I'll talk about is actually going out and catching sharks. So when you go out and fish for sharks, sometimes you use fishing poles. If you guys have ever been fishing before, it's very similar, but usually the gear we use is a bit larger. We might also use nets or other gear that's specifically lines that have hooks on them designed specifically for catching sharks. And the method depends on the type of shark that we're actually trying to target. So once we have a shark, we can bring it next to the boat, like we have this black tip, or in the boat, like the little lemon shark that's actually in that tub of water. Now once we have a shark, right, and this really happens wherever you're working, whether it's with a great white or a bull shark or a lemon shark, we do what's called a workup. And this is very similar to when you go to the doctor and get a checkup, right? We want to collect data or information from the shark. So the first thing is we're going to take some measurements. So you can see here we're measuring a bull shark, and we're going to measure from the tip of its nose to the tip of its tail, then from the tip of the nose to the start of the tail, from the tip of the nose to the split in the tail, with the exception of something like a nurse shark because they don't actually have the split in the tail because they don't have a lower lobe. So we take the measurements, right? Length measurements, just like the doctor sees how tall you are, right? Now we can also then measure around the shark, sort of where the shark's armpits would be. And from these length measurements, right, we can actually, with some species, determine how old they are because they have a specific growth rate. They're born at a certain size. They grow a specific amount. So then we can kind of do an estimate of the age knowing that. Now, once we have those, we're going to take a DNA sample, right? So we're going to actually take scissors, and you can see here, and cut a small little notch from the shark's dorsal fin, that top fin, right? The trailing edge or inside, and this little tiny piece of skin, which you can see in those vials, it's probably about the size of your thumbnail. One or two of these will be taken depending on what you're trying to find out. Now, the first thing is the DNA, the genetic makeup of the shark. From that, we can also do a shark family tree. So here in Bimini, the lab, the shark lab, has done a family tree for all the little lemon sharks, right? So they can figure out mom, dad, brothers, sisters, siblings over the years just by having that analyzed at a lab from that little piece of skin. There's also something called the stable isotope, which exists throughout the food chain. So essentially you can determine what the shark's favorite food or the favorite restaurant it's been eating at the last few months. And it helps us determine what role they play in the particular ecosystem. Where do they fit in that food chain? All really, really important for better understanding these animals. Then the next thing is we're going to kind of give the shark an ID tag or a name tag. Right? Now there are different types of tags we can use. Some of them go inside, like this is a pit tag. If any of you have a cat or dog at home that's microchipped in case it gets lost, this is exactly the same thing. It's a tiny little tag you see with all the numbers. A syringe is used, so just like when you get a shot at the doctor's office, it injects it just under the skin, just under the dorsal fin, and that thing in the girl's hand you see with the numbers, that's a scanner. So just like at the grocery store when you scan an item and it beeps, right, this scans the shark and a number comes out, and that's the ID code for that particular shark. So anytime we catch a shark, we're going to look for tags. We're also going to scan to see maybe it's been tagged before. Right, so these little tiny ones are great also for smaller sharks, and it's really just a way for, we catch lots of sharks. We need to have a way to kind of give them an ID tag. Now other sharks, the tags will go on the outside, and there's quite a few different types. Some of the most common ones that are used here and we've used on our projects, one of them is a roto tag. So if you've ever seen a cow or a pig or a sheep in a field and had a plastic tag on its ear, these are the same thing. These are cattle tags, and they're actually used instead of on the ear, they go on the fins. It's kind of like a big fin piercing for the shark. There's a hole punch, and then this is attached, and it gives us an external ID for the shark. There's different sizes and colors, and on the back side from the numbers, there'll be information about who is actually putting these tags on, and people can contact that to report it. So, all right, I'm going to do a couple questions now because I see a lot of people have actually sent in. All right, let's see. So do sharks have a great self-healing process? They actually do. Sharks can heal incredibly quickly, right? So if you actually do put a tag inside, so there are larger tags, and I'll actually show them in the next slide so you'll see, they can actually be put inside the shark and one little stitch to seal it up, and they'll heal incredibly quickly. There was a shark actually here at the lab that had a huge bite mark, a very, very large chunk out, and within 6 weeks, it had healed up and only had a little bit of a scar. Right? So if you think about it, if you get a cut on your hand and you go in the water every day, it takes a long time for it to heal, right? Because it doesn't close up. Sharks can heal incredibly quickly, right? So they do have that. Tags in the fin as opposed to somewhere else. We put them in the fin, this tag in the fin, so that it doesn't affect their swimming. Because if we put it somewhere else, it might bother a system. It might also, if it's a larger tag, you want it to be kind of hydrodynamic. You want it to be able to move along and not impact the way the shark moves or swims. So these can stay flush with the fin. It's also, there's not nerve endings right there where it is, so kind of either taking the DNA or putting this in, the shark is not feeling that. All right, let me scroll up here. We've got a few, let's see here. How long does the process take to check and ID the shark? The whole system from catching it and finishing, depending on the type of tag, is usually 5 to 10 minutes. It's done very quickly. The team trains and practices, and we want to do this as quickly as possible to release the animal. We can't explain to it what's going on. So we do secure it next to the boat or in the boat, and we have lines on it so that it can't thrash around and hurt itself. And we want to do this as quickly as possible. So it's really important to work together as a team to collect the needed data and then let the animal go. So it's done as quickly as possible. Right? Why do you put the tags? Let's see. Do sharks have predators? They absolutely do. So when they're small, bigger fish, like around here, barracudas, grouper will eat them. Other sharks, lemon sharks and tiger sharks will eat other sharks. Something like great whites, even orcas have been known to eat great whites or thresher sharks, and even large sea lions will eat. So they absolutely do have predators. All right, let's see. Let's see. Are there any programs in Massachusetts that students can participate in? Well, actually, the Gills Club, which is part of the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy, they have different programs. It's not necessarily tagging, but they do have hands-on and interactive programs that they do offer for students, something like shark dissection or things like that. Our Sharks for Kids program also offers the opportunity for us to come in and do different projects with students. Again, if you guys check out the website, you can see that and see some of the options and message us. We do visit schools all around the world. Next week, I'm going to be spending a week on a different island in person visiting schools. So there are opportunities for students in various places to actually get more involved. Where do sharks get their names from? Right, so it really depends. Some of them are when they were first discovered, different names. A lot of them, though, are the coloration or the markings. If you think of a tiger shark, it's got stripes. All right, a great white, that big white belly. So it's really a lot of that is their characteristics, but then also different translations from Latin names and the scientific name can also be used. So it varies quite a bit, but a lot of them, like a blue shark, the color, things like that, white tip reef shark, oceanic white tip, they have white tips on their fins. So a lot of times it's what a physical characteristic that can kind of distinguish them from other types of sharks. All right. And I'm going to do one more and then we'll keep going. So are sharks attracted to human blood? Now, sharks have an incredible sense of smell. They can smell blood. We actually did an experiment here for a television show where we put human blood, all the people working on the television show donated blood, and we put it in the water. And again, we're going to be loading this video to our website, so we can direct you guys, if you go through the website and ask if this is a video you'd like to see. We released the blood. The sharks were swimming around with Caribbean reef sharks. They were all around. We released the blood. Some of them swam away from it. But they didn't start getting crazy. They didn't start moving around really fast. They didn't start going into kind of hunt mode or anything. Now, if you put fish blood in the water, they immediately start swimming faster. They're trying to figure out where that's coming from. And you can see their sensory systems kind of going into action to try and figure out where that fish blood is coming from. Because if fish blood means there's a dead fish in the water. But with the human blood that we put in, they didn't have a reaction like that at all. So say you're in the ocean and you cut your hand, you might want to get out to actually, deal with the cut, but you don't have to worry that all of a sudden all these sharks are going to come in and come right to you because there's blood in the water. All right, and I'm going to do one more and then we'll keep going. So do sharks hunt alone or in packs? Depends on the type of shark. Something like a dogfish, okay, there's different species of dogfish and they're called that because they actually do hunt in packs like dogs. So it really, again, over 500 different species of sharks, so different sharks kind of work in different methods. Some are lone animals, only coming together when they mate, and others do actively work together in order to hunt. Or like those little lemon sharks, they have their best buddies when they're young. All right, so we're going to look at some other tags. So this tag is some of the work being done right here in Bimini at the Shark Lab. And these are images from a video that we shot. And so the guy is diving down because hammerheads have a very small mouth and they have to keep swimming in order to breathe. So catching them can sometimes be really stressful on the animal. So if you can avoid that, it's much better. So the lab has developed a technique for actually putting a tag on without having to catch the animal. Right? So the diver can swim down, it's kind of like a slingshot, and put that tag on. And you can see that bright orange tag, that acoustic tag. This is the same thing that can also be put internally on the shark. Now the hammerhead's next to that kind of thing sticking up out of the ocean, that's a receiver. So when a shark or a tuna or any animal, a fish, because these are used for other ocean animals, not just sharks, swims within a specific distance of that receiver, it records the time, the temperature of the water, and the shark. Okay? This tells us movement patterns, and also we can see, is one shark spending a lot of time with another one? That's part of the reason similar tags for actually observing and seeing the lemon shark spending time with their best friends. Right? So this is another type of tag. It's an acoustic tag, and it sends off this ping, which can be recorded. You can also live track it with a hydrophone, which picks up the specific kind of sound that's coded for that tag. So it'll have a specific series of beeps. So say that tag has 5 beeps, 3 beeps, 3 beeps. All right, so that's tag, we'll say this is Fred the shark, all right? So that's Fred's code. So we can actually track that and figure out where is that shark going, movements, and if they're spending time with the same sharks. Now this last tag is a spot tag, and this one's kind of like putting a mini computer. It's like an iPad or an iPhone on the shark, right? It actually records water temperature and the location. So if you guys have ever seen something like OSearch or Guy Harvey that has the online tracking, so you can live track mako sharks, great whites, oceanic whitetips. These are the tags that are used. And the antenna sticks up and it sends information to a satellite, right? So we can actually figure out where these sharks are going, their movements, and it's really fun to be able to track. See? What are the tags made of, and do the sharks ever react to the material? Some sharks do have reactions, especially depending on some of these larger tags like this have caused reactions, but the tags don't usually, like these, don't stay on their whole life. They're designed to stay on a specific amount of time, and then they corrode. So different materials don't stay on their whole life. They're designed to stay on a specific amount of time, and then they corrode. So different materials that corrode in seawater, they break down, are used, and the tag will actually come off and pop to the surface. Right, other tags are made of plastic and different types of metals. Some of them do stay in the shark the whole life, like the acoustic tags or even the roto tag, unless it grows out or falls off. So again, depending on the type of shark, there's different materials that are used for the tags to be put on the shark, or what the tag is actually made of. Right, do sharks fight for prey? Yes, they do. Right, so if you're a shark and you found something, all right, it isn't like wait in a nice line and you get your turn at the restaurant. Or so if you find something and there are other sharks in the area, yes, they will fight for food, especially if it's a limited item or something, there's other sharks in the area. But then they may also cooperatively feed. I saw great whites eating a dead blue whale, and it was very slow. They took turns. So again, the thing to remember with sharks is because they're incredibly diverse and there's so many of them, right? It varies from shark to shark how they hunt, how they feed, and what they're feeding on. See. So this is just to show you the tiger shark. We used spot tags when I was in Australia on these tiger sharks to track their movements. So it's next to the boat, and then the tag will actually be attached to the dorsal fin. And this is a track. This is kind of an image showing you what that tag produces. So you can go online and actually follow these. And all the little red dots happen when the shark's dorsal fin sticks up out of the water and it sends information up to satellites, and we can get a track like this. We connect all the red dots and we see where the shark is going. So this tiger shark got its tag where that green dot is, went up the east coast of the United States, and then came back down here to the Bahamas, which is awesome because it's protected here. But much of the world's oceans do not protect sharks. So this gives us information about where they go. All right, all of these tags, all of this data we collect tells us where these sharks go. What do they eat? Okay, what habitats do they use? Where do they go to mate? Where do they go to give birth? The more we know about any animal, whether it lives on land or in the ocean, the easier it is for us to protect them. Right? If we don't know about an animal, it's very difficult to know what they need in order to be able to protect them or protect the habitats that they're utilizing. Now, something like the mangroves, which provide critical nursery habitat for those little nurse sharks and lemon sharks, if that's wiped out, where are the sharks going to go? So it's also a matter of protecting the habitats they use as well. All right, sorry. Okay, so I also spend a lot of time just swimming with sharks, observing them, taking photos and videos. This is another tool for learning about animals. Observing them in their natural habitat, photographing them. We can recognize specific sharks with photos and videos and see how often they're in an area. So sometimes we just go snorkeling or free diving. I have a mask on my face in this photo, and I'm diving down and holding my breath with the fins on my feet with this Caribbean reef shark. Other times I have to have some special equipment that allows me to breathe underwater. So this is called scuba diving equipment. It's like an underwater backpack that holds a tank of air, because I can't breathe underwater, so I have to bring my own air. And I hold that, I attach that to the backpack, put that on, and there's that tube that comes around into my mouth. It's called a regulator, and that's how I get the air. So this allows me to actually stay down in the water and explore. And the awesome thing about scuba diving is it's something anybody can learn how to do. You don't have to live on the beach. You don't have to be a marine biologist, right? Anybody can learn how to do this, and it's an amazing way to explore the largest part of our planet, the ocean. But you can also do it in lakes, and rivers, and quarries. It's lots of fun. You can do backflips and spin around, but it's a great tool for learning about animals. Now, I do take cameras in the water, but I can't just jump in the ocean with my regular camera. Salt water is not very good for electronics. So we have special cases, underwater housings. It's a house for the camera, and it goes inside. They're made of metal or plastic, and it keeps the camera safe. So here I am, I've got all my scuba diving equipment on, and I'm taking some footage of this very big, beautiful tiger shark. All right. Okay, so someone asked about remoras, and these are, oftentimes they look like small sharks, or they're fish that attach to the shark. And what they do is they'll eat little parasites and things off the shark's skin. They hitch a ride, and sharks are pretty messy eaters, so there's lots of crumbs, so they'll actually sneak up and grab that. Now, this person was swimming along, and the remora was following them, and they asked if it was being aggressive or if it was just trying to kind of thinking it was you were a shark. So the remora, you're a big animal in the water. So if the remora had come away from a dolphin or a shark, you're now a big predator in the water. They're going to try and attach to you because you're an opportunity for food. You're also like a big bodyguard in the ocean. So I would say it wasn't aggressive. I would say it was just trying to have you be the next thing it attached to. What's the most unusual thing I've seen a shark do? I always think it's kind of cool to see them chafe. They'll actually turn over, and it's almost like they're itching their back. That's really cool. But also seeing a lemon shark give birth it's a pretty rare thing. I mean, it obviously happens with them, but it's a pretty rare thing for humans to get to see. And that's probably the most remarkable thing I've ever get to see is actually little sharks being born. Absolutely amazing. One of the coolest things I've ever seen, not even just shark related, but ever seen in my life. So this shows you the camera that we use, one of them, and it goes inside that big metal case. This weighs about 80 pounds, so it's actually pretty heavy, but once it gets in the water, it floats, so it's much easier once it's actually in the water. And the screen on the top, that black kind of square, is like a video screen, so we can actually see what the camera sees, so you don't have to kind of stick your face down into the little opening in the back. You can actually watch it like a TV, which helps you. And like I said, I've filmed for a lot of different television shows on BBC, National Geographic, Animal Planet. And it's great. So if you guys have ever seen animals in the water on a television show, someone had to get in the water with a camera. So it's a really great opportunity for people all around the world to learn and get to see these animals. Again, all of these are tools to increase our understanding of, and it's not just for sharks, right? It's all animals. The more we know about them, the easier it is for us to put laws in place and take action to protect them. Right? And again, this is with a great hammerhead. This time of year they migrate, they travel through Bimini, and we're able to get in the water and swim with them. We've had up to 10 on a dive, which is pretty amazing because they're an endangered species, so it's actually really special to be able to see them, especially in shallow, clear water. And the research station here is trying to better understand them because there's still very little we actually know about these animals. So knowing more, again, is an important part of hopefully changing that status from endangered to a much larger population of these sharks. And sometimes we work with flat sharks. This is a southern stingray coming to say hello. Oftentimes people are afraid of stingrays. They do have a barb, but they can't throw it, they can't attack, they can really just lift it. So unless you step right on it or you were to grab the animal, it's really possible to have a safe interaction. With sharks and rays and animals, it's really about respect. Right? We don't ride them, we don't harass them, we don't grab them, right? They are a wild animal. I love sharks, but I'm not trying to hug them or cuddle with them. I'm respecting that they are a top predator. Okay, they do have teeth. They don't know that I'm not trying to harm them. So it's really about respect. And by doing that, right, we're able to have these safe and absolutely amazing interactions with these animals, right? And it's something everyone can do. There are shark interactions all over the world, right? All over the world, whether you're snorkeling or diving or even visiting areas just to see them, right? So this is an opportunity that I hope all of you get, no matter where you are, get the chance to do. Okay, because it really, really is amazing to see them. All right, let's see. Do sharks prey on whales? Yes, they do. Especially, we had a whale here that had kind of started to beach itself and was dying, and all of a sudden there were tiger sharks. Like they knew, they were waiting. So dead animals like a big whale, that would provide a lot of food, but they also will actually hunt, different whales and things like that. So the ocean is a big place. Particularly pelagic sharks are more opportunistic. Okay, whatever kind of comes through, they're going to be more likely to try and go after because there's less options for food as you would find maybe on a coral reef. All right. And I also spent a lot of time filming the science. So this is the Shark Lab in action, putting this bull shark's alive. It's flipped over in that tonic immobility, and they're actually inserting the tag inside. There's an opening, a cavity inside on the almost like the belly of the shark that they could put that tag, the same orange tag you saw on the hammerhead inside. And then one stitch, let the shark go, it heals up, and then this shark will be able to be tracked. All right, so filming the science, because if this is happening and nobody knows about it, we want people to understand. We want people to know, what does it mean to tag a shark? Why are we doing it? Right? We're not just grabbing animals and poking holes in them for no reason. This is actually really, really important. Without the science, laws, better protections aren't put in place. Shark sanctuaries, all right, species that are protected in different areas and have different status throughout the globe exist because of scientific studies that have given us, information about their movement patterns, their behaviors, and their numbers, right? All really, really important. So sharing that with people, again, so that you guys all know what's going on. What does it mean? Why are we doing this? And why is it important? Now, project we've been working on recently is actually putting cameras on sharks. So critter cameras have been designed through the years to go on different animals, whether it was a polar bear or a seal or a turtle. So this camera has gone on a hammerhead, and it's kind of like being in a video game and you're the shark. So it allows us to see where they go, kind of their movements, their reactions to other animals and things to give more insight. And it stays on, this particular camera stayed on for about 2 hours, then it pops off and we can go grab the camera. Right? And this is kind of what it would look like from the angle of the shark. So it's swimming along and this hammerhead sees another hammerhead up in front. Right? So it's really another tool for us to be able to get more information about these particular animals, not just for sharks, but in this case for hammerheads. So this has been a really fun project to actually put these cameras. We use GoPros a lot of times. You guys are probably familiar with GoPros. People use them for skiing or surfing. They're also really great for filming animals and used as an animal-borne camera, a camera that goes on the animal. All right, so all of this, I'm talking to you about sharks, the studying, all of this is because they're actually really important animals. So if you think of the food chain and the food web within the ocean, it needs to be balanced. Right? There's only so much energy and space within the ocean for particular animals and organisms. So by keeping that system balanced, it keeps it healthy. And sharks, by eating other animals below them in the food chain, they help do this. If we remove all the sharks from an area, the system starts to fail. The animals below it overpopulate. Their populations go up and up and up and up, and then they don't have enough food. So then they're gone. And the system starts to break down, right? And sharks also eat injured, sick, dying animals, which keeps disease from spreading and keeps the ocean clean. So healthy, balanced, clean oceans exist because of these animals. So they play an important role. The ones that are at the top of the food chain, apex predators, play an incredibly important role. right? You can think of lions or wolves as apex predators on land. They're really important for keeping these ecosystems healthy. So if we remove too many sharks, the system starts to fail. And no matter where we live, we need healthy oceans, right? No matter whether you live on the beach with the ocean right here or 3,000 miles away, healthy oceans are important. Some of the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, the products we buy exist because of the ocean. So if we need healthy oceans and healthy oceans need sharks, we really need these animals. And they definitely need our help because 100 million sharks are being killed every year. 100 million. That is a big, scary number, right? That to me is the scariest thing about sharks, right? Not an ocean with them, but an ocean without them, right? They're killed for their fins. You guys may have heard about shark fin soup, right? The fins are used to make a soup. It can be very expensive. And finning happens when the actual animal, the fins are cut off while it's still alive and the body is thrown back in the ocean. And this is driving probably the largest demand for sharks around the world. But they're also caught for their meat. They're caught as bycatch, which means people are fishing for something else and they accidentally catch sharks, maybe in nets or on lines. Right? And different products. The cartilage is used to make pills, vitamins. The meat is sold. The jaws, the teeth, the oil from the liver is used to make makeup, lipsticks, lotions. Right? All of these things are causing a demand that's killing sharks at a rate that's 2 times faster than they can actually keep up with. Their populations are going down. This is a problem for the oceans, which means it's a problem for us. But the great thing is there's actually a lot we can do. Right? So every day, no matter where you live, simple actions, recycling, making sure your trash doesn't go on the ground. Right? If you see trash, pick it up. That's not only good for the planet, it's good for sharks in the ocean. Reducing the amount of plastic. Plastic is everywhere, right? Maybe you don't need to use straws. Reuse your water bottles, right? Use canvas bags at the grocery store. Ask mom, dad, family, friends to do the same. And also speaking up for sharks. So maybe if you guys learned something today and you're really excited about sharks, maybe you can make some posters in your classroom or do a project or a video. Talk to your friends and your family. Tell them 100 million sharks are being killed. These are all simple actions, plus making posters and videos. It's really, really fun and easy ways that you can actually help save sharks. And it really does make a difference. They're in trouble, and every small, simple action that we take every day can make a huge difference. Right. So now I'm going to go back to some of these questions because you guys have actually sent a lot more. All right, so let's see. Does prey like a whale ever fight back? Absolutely. So just because the shark wants a meal doesn't mean that the meal is, that seal's going, I don't want to be lunch. So yeah, they fight back. They claw, they bite, they defend themselves. So absolutely. If it's already dead or very, very injured, it might not fight back, obviously. But yes, animals do fight back. Do any sharks stay with their newborns? They might be in the same area, but it's not like something like a dolphin that has their calf right with them and takes right care of them. So they might be in the same area, but some species of sharks, mom will actually eat her own young, right? It might be a year later or 2 years later, but that does happen. Is the plastic island having direct effect on shark populations? Well, plastic in the oceans, whether it's the big gyre in the Pacific or anywhere, affects all animals. Sharks get tangled up, they ingest it, which can cause problems. So plastic is affecting our oceans everywhere and absolutely affecting the animals within it. And also, so sharks, if they eat a fish that ate some plastic because it got caught up, right now it's in their system, all right? So the plastic doesn't go away, it bioaccumulates, it adds up, just like mercury, which is a toxin that ends up in the oceans. And so sharks and other top predators like tuna, whales, dolphins, they have a high content of mercury. And you may have heard people talk about trying to avoid fish that have high mercury content because it can actually make us really sick. So the other thing is avoid buying shark products if you can, okay? Eating shark can actually have, the mercury can cause a lot of problems for us, but also not buying these products. If we don't buy them, companies aren't going to make them anymore, right? So plastic does absolutely have an effect on these animals. There are millions and millions of sharks left, thank goodness, but these numbers are going down. Now, not every type of shark, but some are, efforts have been made. Great white populations have started to come back up because of conservation efforts, which shows you conservation science, this does have a positive impact. So it does give us hope that we can actually help save these animals. There are things that we can actually do. It's not just, oh, well, it's happening, we can't do anything, all right? Our actions are helping these animals. So not every type of shark in every area, but overall their populations are going down. How many babies does a shark have? Depends. So like that poor Jackson shark, she only lays 1 egg case. That's it. All right, the lemon sharks, when they give birth, usually 10 to 15 pups. Others may like 20 to 40. All right, so it really just depends on the type of shark. Okay. Goblin sharks. I can absolutely give you a little information. Goblin sharks are pretty awesome. They're a deep water species. They have a long snout with these teeth, kind of look like a goblin, and they're rare. When they come up and scientists have caught them, it's usually in nets. They come up from deep water trawls that have taken everything. One of the coolest things is that their skin is actually slightly pink when it comes up to the surface. Really, really amazing, very cool looking animal. Doesn't look like that great white kind of what you think about goblin sharks. All right. Does anyone we have time for just a couple more questions, if any. Oh, do sharks have spawning grounds? Well, they don't actually spawn like fish. They don't lay thousands of eggs. They will have areas that they mate, right, that they go to and they gather. And they'll also have specific areas that they go to give birth. Like the lemon sharks coming here, they come in very shallow water, almost beaching themselves on the high tides in the spring here and get as close to the mangroves as they can to give birth to those babies, to give those babies the best possible chance to get into an area that's nice and safe. Right, so they will have areas that they go to give birth, and they will have specific areas they go to mate. But it's very different. It's not like a big spawn that happens with fish. Yes, there are very certain times that sharks migrate. It's usually based on water temperature or movement of the items that the prey items that they feed on. So tiger sharks in Australia would follow the dugongs, kind of like a big version of a manatee. So they will follow food. If there are bait fish running, smaller fish, right now like the black tips are migrating off Florida, and you can see the aerial shots. There's thousands of them, and they're following food up the coast, but also water temperature. Right now we have the stingray, the eagle rays are here, and the hammerheads, which feed on stingrays and eagle rays. So this time of year, December through April, we have the gray hammerheads here. So yes, there are specific times of year that they do migrate. All right, well, thank you guys so much, and please check out www.sharksforkids.com. Feel free to email me through the website if you have additional questions. We also set up Skype calls if you want a more specific interaction. We can do that as well, and thank you guys so much for taking time today to learn a bit more about sharks and why they're important. Oops, I'll do this one last clip. How small can baby sharks be? Depends on the type of shark. Like I said, that baby nurse shark was less than a ruler. It was about 11 inches long. Others that come out of the egg cases are only going to be a few inches long. So they can actually be very small. All right. Thank you guys so much. Everyone have a great day, and thank you for wanting to learn about sharks.